What's up, world? This is A.L. Johnson with Elevating Men. I'm here with my awesome panel of people so we can continue on this conversation we've been having for the past 3 weeks. This is the fourth segment of our series, Man and Woman, or Man versus Woman. And when I tell you this has been enlightening, it's been eye-opening. There's been a lot of truth bombs, blown up all over us. And so if you haven't been able to follow along with the conversation, make sure that you visit our YouTube channel. Go ahead and go to YouTube, type in Elevating Men, and catch up on the archives because this has really been a groundbreaking series for us. Today, we're going to kind of try to tie all of it together. We're talking about the dissent between men and women in our community. So many different talking points, so many different angles, but we're going to get into the conversation right after this quick break. Just 1 second. Oh, we are back. Listen, if you're tuning in, if you're watching us, go ahead and give us a thumbs up or a heart so we know that you can hear us. We're not having any technical difficulties or anything like that. This is going to be a great conversation, and we want you to hear every single word. Also, go ahead and share this with your people. Go ahead and tell them to come in because we're going to be having a great conversation, and we want your all's input. Just like every other show, we value that. So definitely hop in the comments. We'll be reading those and commenting. But before we get into the topic of conversation, I have to introduce my panel. I know you see all these lovely people sitting here. And so to my right, I've got A.L. Boykin from Dinner and Dialogue. He's also the founder of The Restoration, a 501c3 that's geared towards rebuilding our communities. We've also got Miss Devin Elisse at the far right. She is the owner of Lifted KC that also addresses men's mental health. Right below her, we've got LaRon Barnes, LaRon the Motivator. He's our resident motivational speaker and life coach. Next to him, we've got Miss LaToya Rozof. She's the owner of 79 Rows, which is a boutique for plus size women. And to her left, we've got Lojo Speaks, Vice President of Elevating Men, and Lojo, the car pro over at Lopez Boys Auto Sales. So let's go ahead and hop into the conversation, right? So we have the four-part series, like I said, Man and Woman, or Man versus Woman. This is about all the arguments that we have online. So we've talked about social media. We've talked about sex. We've talked about dating. We talked about marriage. Is it a business or is it about love? We've covered almost everything, but there's a few things we need to touch on, and then we need to kind of figure out how to tie it all together so that we can have some workable solutions moving forward. Now, when we talk about dissent and we talk about arguments that men and women have, especially online, one of the big ones that we can't really glaze over is Roe v. Wade. So I know you guys have seen that Roe versus Wade was overturned. The power is in the hands of the states. There's protests all over the country. It's a very divisive topic. And so definitely in the comments, please be sensitive. But at the same time, we do want to see what your thoughts are. And so when it comes to Roe versus Wade, as men, it's hard for us to have the conversation. So it's great that we have a couple ladies involved. And so just before we got on, we were having a little bit of a conversation. And Miss Devin, I want to start with you, just kind of as an overall overarching opinion. What are your thoughts about what's going on right now as a woman?
And again, this is strictly my opinion from my experiences, but I feel like Roe versus Wade pushes us as a woman a step behind, right? So I feel like we've been fighting for years for equality, to be the rib, the backbone of our man, to be his helpmate, to be looked at as equal, to the point where we've started, you know, seeking jobs, seeking pay grades the same as a man. And for a man to almost mute or muzzle us and tell us what to do with our bodies was almost like taking away our right to have a voice, our right to have an opinion. But I also, on the flip side of that, I can see the call for accountability. I seen a lot of posts when it first happened where some people were making valid points on Roe versus Wade, as far as women being able to speak about their own bodies. And then I also seen where, you know, we're going to throw up all the thousands of scenarios where you know, health is plays a part, or you know, there is absolutely a criminal notion behind someone's decision to want an abortion. But then it kind of got me on like the teenage moms, or a woman having a baby and not financially able to take care of that baby. I think that's where accountability comes in. And we also have to make sure that we're not doing this taboo thing of not talking to our young ladies about the consequences, so that we're not wasting dollars killing babies off of a bad mistake. So I think it's a two-part thing. And as a woman, I don't want to sound insensitive to either side, because I mean, we've all probably made our own decisions when it comes to parenting or giving birth to a child, and that at the end of the day, I feel like that decision needs to be left up to the woman whose body is in question.
Got it, got it. I appreciate that feedback. I want to throw up a couple statistics. They're not to be taken in any kind of way. They're just statistics. They're just numbers. And so I just researched. The latest data that I found was from 2019. There were a little over 600,000 abortions in a country of a little over 300 million people. 1%, according to USA Today, less than 1% were because of rape. Less than 0.5% were because of incest. I couldn't find anything specifically on medical necessity. And so when it just comes to women's rights, women's choice, LaToya, what is your thought on that?
Yeah, I am from the proponent. I'm from the standard of I think everybody should mind their own business, and I think that is totally a woman and or her partner's choice. Next step when it comes to like abortion or anything like that, when it comes to reproduction. I, regardless of if it was rape or if it's incest or whatever, how the
Okay, I think she got I think we got disconnected there. No problem. 1 second. Okay, we'll wait for her to hop back on. I think we got her here. Okay, so no, while are you back, LaToya? Are you with us?
I am. I don't know what happened. That's so weird. I was
No
gonna
problem. No
say,
problem.
I think it's a personal choice between another woman. I don't want to be in somebody's situation. I don't know how it went down. That's not my, place to be, nor is the government's place to be, either. I think, the role is to provide resources and education for all to make sound decisions. And at the end of the day, if that's someone's choice, that's their choice.
Got it. Got it. Enough said. Enough said. Now, with this being Elevated Men, we have to advocate for the men. I had a couple guys offline. They didn't want to get attacked or anything like that. So they sent me a couple questions. And so I just want to throw those out there. But the question came up, if it is a woman's choice at the end of the day, but the man also plays a responsibility in creating this child. And if the child is brought into this world, he does have that responsibility. He can be put on child support, all these different things. How do you feel about a man's right when it comes to an abortion? I know that the woman, at the end of the day, it's her body, it's her choice. But because the man is responsible for that ultimate decision, what kind of conversations do we have with our teenage boys around this type of topic? And I know it's tough. But what are your thoughts on that?
Oof, that's tough. We should have had these as prep questions. Sheesh.
Hey, we just dive right in. That's what we do. We just dive right in and we
I
figure
feel
it
like
out.
I'm drowning with just diving in with these
Don't
questions.
drown. Don't drown.
I would.
Yeah.
This is just shooting off the hip, right? Because I've had friends that have had this exact situation, and I don't feel like as a woman I can advise a man on how to feel or what to do. But there has been situations where I've had friends that the woman didn't want the baby and they were excited to bring new life into the world. And it was just kind of like, you know, he didn't have a say because it was her body. And then on the flip side, you got the woman that's like, I'm having this baby whether you like it or not. Um, I feel like on the side where the man doesn't want the baby and the woman is knowing of this, I think there needs to be some type of documentation. Like if you're willing to move forward knowing this, then I might regret saying this like 20 minutes later, but I think you
It's
just
all
gotta
right. This is a judgment-free zone.
I'm like off the hip. I feel like there needs to be some type of legality, some type of form where he signs away his rights and he's not held liable. But the woman knows this up front. And if she decides to move forward, then she's moving forward knowing. And I think again that just comes with accountability of being mindful who you lay with and having to own those actions of doing things when there was a called order, right? Basically to be married and that thing. So, ooh, that was
Yeah,
deep.
it's deep. I mean, it really is deep when you think about it. If we look at it from both sides, like another question that came up was paternity, right? So if a man signs a birth certificate, he's automatically liable and financially responsible for a child, although he may not actually be the biological father. There's been a precedent set in court where the man found out later that he wasn't the father, but he still was legally, financially responsible because he signed the birth certificate. So just when it comes to paternity testing at birth, because this is another area of dissension between men and women. What do you feel about that? Some women say, hey, if you don't trust me, go on about your business. Others say, hey, it's his right to know. What do you guys feel about that?
I think if they're not married, it should be done. Like, you know, rule it out up front. And I didn't know I knew that if they signed the birth certificate, but I didn't know that they couldn't retract it if they were on there. So I definitely feel like if you're not married and you have a child out of wedlock, then there should be automatic DNA tests done when the baby's born.
What are your thoughts, LaToya?
Oh man, these are loaded questions. I think that again, I think it's between that couple and whoever, you know, the partners are, whether they are together or not. I think it's whatever choices they decide to make, you know, if paternity test, abortion, whatever it is, I think it's
Banana smash!
Got it.
Sit down, Lamus. I'm Jameson!
So I got somebody's kids in the background. They hear us talking about kids. They want to get out here and protest. Let's see here. So we got a comment from Miss Galen. Thanks for tuning in. She said 425,000 children are in foster care and only 112,000 will be eligible for adoption in a year and will have to wait for 4 years on average. Definitely sad. It's not for me to say if someone should abort or not. That's between their parents and their God. I agree government should not have any kind of control, just my opinion. And I stand with separation of church and state. Appreciate that comment. And I agree as well. You know, at the end of the day, you know, when it's your body, it definitely is your choice. But we do have to look at it as a whole, because again, from the perspective of elevating men, we're about building families and building stronger communities. And how can we do that if the man and the woman are always at odds with each other? And so before we move into anything else, guys, did you guys have anything to add to that conversation? Any questions or thoughts?
I'll just kind of mention, you know, and once again, this is all individually opinionated. Going back to, I really don't believe, of course, I don't believe in abortions. I don't believe in it all the way around. I don't believe that, you know, and like I said, this is my opinion. You know, people can disagree, but I don't believe with it. I don't believe that you should take a life, especially most of the lives that are being taken by accident or because of an accident of an immature mistake. You know what I'm saying? As it was said already. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different factors on, you know, we hear about rape and we hear about molestation. We hear about a lot of different factors in those areas right there. But the only thing I've heard of also situations, and I'm not saying it's good, hear what I'm saying, that if an individual was raped, you know, that calls for an abortion. I'm not saying either way. I don't believe. I am saying either way. I'm saying I don't believe in it. It's uncomfortable getting into it like that, but at the same time, I truly believe that being the percentage that we kind of talked about of that happening is so low that I don't see so much of weighing up with it as a whole compared to the mistakes that people make because of sex. They want to have sex in immaturity, if that makes sense. I hope I've said that in a way. I'm trying to explain.
No, correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying that you know, from the numbers, it appears that there's a really small percentage that are out of medical necessity, rape or incest, but the majority of it is based off of poor decision making.
That's all it is. That's what I truly believe. It's poor decision making, and you know, oh, I don't want a child right now. Oh, I'm not ready right now. That was because of a poor decision that was made. So you don't want to find specks in scenarios and make it seem as if it's a whole thing. You know what I mean? Just because you, like, for example, we can go to race if we want to. If just because you may find one person who may be African American, Black, who's robbing the store or may have issues, don't mean all of them are like that. You know what I'm saying? That don't mean you treat the whole situation like that. And I believe, you know, just from the perspective of don't classify, put everything, you know, don't let one bad apple spoil the whole bunch, if that makes sense in a way.
It does. It definitely makes sense.
I try to articulate that the best way I could.
No, you did an excellent job, man. You did an excellent job. And like I said, this is a tough conversation, but at the end of the day, if we're really about community building, we have to have the tough conversations, right? We can't sugarcoat everything. We can't sidestep conversations and think we're going to build, because at the end of the day, we're going to be in separate silos thinking what we think and not understanding each other. So that's what this is all about, just really bringing it together. So before abortion happens, two people have to meet, click, and connect. So our last show, we talked about sex in the beginning of relationships, right? Very interesting conversation. There were a lot of things that we weren't able to touch on, but I did have a conversation with my brother, Andrew Boykin. We're always talking, having these just deep conversations. And he brought up a point that I'd like for him to just present a little bit, and we discuss. It was about the purpose of sex, the original intent, and how we have twisted it into something else, and why that may be a cause of a lot of our problems. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
So it's kind of off subject. Real quick. I want to respond to the some of the questions or the comments about Roe versus Wade and LaRon's comment. One, LaRon started his comment with, "Hey, this is just my belief," and I'm summarizing. But what I wanted to respond was, or how I wanted to share, or my response was, the beauty in what I'm hoping that can happen is not only do I respect and accept your belief, I'm hoping that others can accept and respect your belief as well. And I'm hoping that those who believe like you can accept and respect someone else's belief that might be different than your belief. Because when it comes down to it, I believe that I have no place in speaking for a woman's choice, regardless of whatever. Now, the way that I understand it is many of these clinics might get government funding because of Roe versus Wade. And now that government funding is going to be taken away, many of those clinics can't operate. But also now it's being criminalized to even pay for it out of pocket. And for me, that's a medical choice, whatever a person wants to choose. And the end result is between them and their God, basically their belief. Now, the comment that you were talking about regarding the purpose of having children. This is how I understood history. I understood history by saying, Adam, I now give you dominion over this earth and this garden and all that you see, animals, birds, creeping, crawling things, even serpents. And now I give you this helpmeet. Be fruitful and multiply, for this is now your purpose. And that purpose to multiply is to ensure that those that come behind Adam continues the growth and development of the garden / the purpose. So children are originally designed to continue on the purpose, period.
So when we get into the conversation about just kind of like casual dating, right? And within that, there's the attraction, and people get to a point of it becoming physical. And let's not look at it, even if we don't look at it from a biblical perspective, do you see anything wrong with that? Just based off the original purpose for sex.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Do I see anything wrong with what again?
So when we talk about casual dating, right? So we're talking about consenting adults casually dating. That line is crossed.
I do something's wrong. I do see something wrong with that because, like I said in the previous in number 3, sex is a stressful expression. So what comes from that expression is more stressful. Purpose, on the other hand, is pre-planned. Purpose has an actual reason for everything that it puts in place. So if that purpose says that we need children because by the time I hit 30, my body's going to start breaking down. By the time I hit 40, they're going to be 10, 15. They're going to be able to milk the cows and tend to the chickens and so forth and so on. By the time I hit 60, they're in their stride to keep the land going on.
So again, I feel like this portion of the conversation, when we talk about relationships and how we start them out, what the intent and purpose is like the root of most of the conversations that we have. Like you said, there has to be a plan in place at first. So when you look at some of the relationship conversation, like who gets the biggest piece of chicken, or who gets their plate first, or, what do you bring to the table, or who should be running the household, all of these things are things that have to be talked about and discussed early on in the relationship before you've ever put yourself in a situation where you can procreate and then create another broken family within our community. I just want to do a quick round robin. Just when it comes to broken families in our community, do you feel that a child loses anything from not having both parents in the household? Or do you feel that they can still get everything they need from 2 different homes?
I think you can. I think we see that all the time. Co-parenting and things like that. It's not the same if both of the parents are in their household, but I think there's a way that you can get to some kind of stability with parents in different households. Again, not the same, but I think you can get there.
When you say not the same, what do you feel is lost primarily?
I think there's something when parents are in co-step and lock and step together when it comes to parenting and children seeing their parents, both parents being loved on, and a healthy marriage. I mean, there's a ton of pros, when you're in a home that, with your 2 parents, and it's a different setting. I mean, I grew up in a single parent family, so I understand both sides, and it's a different flow when you have the right partner, and like I said, you lock and step in how you run the household and all of that. It's a little bit, I think you can do that with parents in different households. It's just different, and it just really all comes down to clear and transparent communication.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel that because my generation, we're all about the same age. For the most part, we grew up without both parents in the home. I think one or two may have had both parents in the home. Do you feel that men and women who came from broken homes create more broken homes? Because it feels like marriage was the norm back in the day, even though, you know, they may have had their issues, there may have been things going on, but two-parent households were the norm. And it's increasingly becoming rare to see that two-parent household within certain communities. Why do you think that is? Do you feel like there's something to the independence that attracts us to that, or what is it? What's changed?
That's a loaded question. There's so much that kind of goes into, if you think of like, depending on the community, you think of like, you know, years of systemic racism and unemployment and education. I think all those factors come into play now. So I think it's twofold. I think one, you do have people, women who are independent and they don't need a man or want a man, you know, to in their homes. But I think the other part of it is just like things that we see that are being in light now, you know, in the world. You know, I feel like, you know, like I said, racism and lack of good job opportunities and things like that. I think those are all still factors today in 2022 that lead to, I'm going to speak for the Black community, that leads to broken homes in the Black community.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I,
Anyone else have anything to add to that?
I would like to say
I
that.
think
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Devin.
I think the key is a healthy two-parent household, right? So even for my situation, like I really wish that my children were being raised in a two-parent household, a healthy two-parent household, because there's things like LaToya was stating that they just miss. Like I think kids need to see healthy communication, healthy dialogue back and forth, what healthy love looks like, so that that can be something that they can implement. Again, like I stated on a past show, I believe children either run away from the trauma that they've seen or they gravitate to it. And um, if they have to make a choice on, do I want to fight my mom like I seen my dad do, or do I want to not put my hands on women? Like when they have that choice, they're either going to do A or B. But to just see a healthy relationship, I feel like it's only going to be what they see and what they do, and that's their only option. So when you say a two-parent household, I'm all for it as long as that household is healthy. Again, my household wasn't healthy for my kids, and I see the benefits of us not being together, but I also see things that they're missing from seeing how a woman should interact with a man, and you know, that toughness that I have to carry as being the sole provider for my home and taking care of my bills by any means necessary. They see that and they don't see partnership. They don't see how to work with another person. So I definitely think and wish that we would get to some place where all our focus is to have a healthy household before we start producing babies into all that toxicity, if that's even a word. But I'm all for healthy, if
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
else.
No, excellent points. AB, you had something you wanted to add?
No, it was along the lines of what Devin was talking about, because historically there were two-parent households at one point in time because the marriage rate was up. However, many of us are descendants of those great-grandparents or grandparents who are the last bastion of two-parent households. And somewhere the brokenness eventually came through because, you know, my grandparents at one point in time were married on both sides. But yet the gunshot still went out when grandma was mad at grandpa. And the brokenness came through. So kind of what Devin was saying, one of the reasons why we are having this platform and many other platforms are like this is because we're dealing with the brokenness. We're dealing with the brokenness and we're trying to answer it right now. And it didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be answered overnight.
Most definitely. Most definitely. But we just chip at the conversation, chip away at it little by little. Lojo, I know you've been just kind of laying back in the cut, absorbing it all. What comments do you have so far? What are your thoughts?
Wow, probably a lot, but I'll truncate it. My feedback on Roe v. Wade, and this is more of a general feedback, is if you don't have a solution to a problem, then you can't really address the problem. That's my feedback. If that comment makes sense, and I hear a lot of guys saying that, we want a voice too, which is fine, but I also hear the aggressive side of it, which is authority, and strong words like that. And that's where you really take the partnership out of a communication, because authority means you now have the decision and there is no partnership. There's no communication. It's your decision. I think it's okay to have a voice and an opinion, but there's no way for a person to have control over any other person's body, male or female. As far as healthy homes and things of that nature. We talk about the two-parent structure a lot because a lot of us didn't have it, right? And I do totally agree with, a two-parent home has to have a healthy home, right? It can't be just two parents in the house, because I've seen a ton of situations where both parents were in the house and there were still a lot of issues that transpired over the course of, an individual child's life. Uh, so again, we're here to have the conversations and to begin to create processes and have continuous dialogue, so that as life expands, we continue to expand our thought process with it.
For sure, for sure. LaRon, now, as far as I know, you may be the only person that had both parents in your household. How did that affect you in your decision-making process when it came to becoming a husband and a father? Did you watching your parents grow up in a healthy marriage, did that have any effect on it? Do you feel that you may have turned out the same way with or without it? How did it affect you personally?
Absolutely. It had a major impact on my life, a major impact to the point where can you all hear me still?
Yeah, we can. We hear you.
No, I was saying it definitely had a major impact on my life as far as the person that I am today, because the man that I am is because of my father. The nurturer that I am came more because of my mother. The man that I am became more because of my father. The nurturer that I am came more from my mother. And just listening to where I hear some people, this is from my experience in this, and I'm glad you asked a question like that, because what I've recognized and realized is there's certain things that my mother was not able to teach me that my father could, because certain things my father has experienced as a man, and vice versa. There's certain things that my father couldn't teach me that my mother could, because my mother, being a woman, been through certain things that my father hasn't. There's an emotional balance with me. There's an emotional balance when there is a healthy home. There's emotional balance, and that's what it comes down to. I believe that I hear that sometimes that people, once again, and I'll keep saying my opinion for this reason because it's my experience, but I believe that people need to hear it because they'll hear it wrong and misunderstand what I'm saying. But I'll say that I believe that there's a balance. A two-parent home, it really is there to balance who you are. A healthy two-parent home is really there to balance who you are, because once again, that even in my home with my children and my wife, two-parent home, there are certain things that are able to get past my wife that won't get past me. And there's certain things to get past me that won't get past my wife. If there's no barrier to block the ball from, you know, when you see that little game of the balls bouncing back and forth, the little back game, if there's no barrier on each side, then when the child goes astray on the side that the mother doesn't understand or the father doesn't understand, what happens is they're just out there and they got to figure it out themselves. But there's a balance in the home, balance when it comes to the emotion of the child, balance on how the child looks at the father, the authoritative figure that he looks at the father, and the authoritative figure he looks at the mother. There are certain things that the child may feel even more comfortable telling the opposite sex. And so some young men don't feel comfortable telling their mother certain things about their, you know, sexual lives. Some do. But a lot of even hearing it from a man, not a womanizer, a father that's not a womanizer, who respects women, who understands the flow of things, that coming to a son is definitely going to hit different than it coming from a mother. So the balance is the greatest thing that's happened to me. And I think that what happened to so many other people if there was a healthy two-family home.
I love it. I love it. I really love that analogy about the ping pong. That was a really good analogy. And I definitely agree with that. Well, let's talk about this, because I think we all agree that it's about a healthy two-parent home, not just two people in a home together, right? But what about when we come to that point where we recognize that it's unhealthy? How do we make that separation and spare the kids' development, their lives, their feelings? How do two people separate when there are children involved and not so much to the detriment of the child? Has anyone dealt with that, been through that, seen that? Have any advice?
I would say, having been through that as a young person, the best thing that both parties can do is bring in help, get involved with some family therapy, a counselor, some mental health, to help everybody process those emotions and those feelings, because it's difficult and it's a really bad situation when you get to that point where you realize that this union is not working anymore. So I would just say, not from experience, to bring in help to help everybody process and to learn to communicate.
With that being said, just while we're there, what do you feel about some form of counseling, even if two people aren't married, but they've had a child together, right? And there's so many things that you have to sort through as it relates to custody, expectations, boundaries, etc. What do you think about therapy for couples that aren't married and they're coming in to bringing a child together?
I think it makes sense. I mean, now they have a term called relationship coach, and relationship coaches really can provide some kind of structure for any type of relationship. And I think that's one thing that we should normalize just anywhere. Like if you can't figure it out, bring in people who are trained to do it. And don't feel like embarrassed or shamed by it, because we're human and we can't do it all.
Right. I agree. Andrew, you had a comment?
Yeah, I forgot what it was though. Oh man. But I would like to piggyback off of what LaToya said. And she used the word and I think we should normalize that counseling. This is not, please don't take this as an assault on what you said, because I agree with the responses, the reactionism that we must do, but understand just how deep the conversation continues on how we need to continue reacting to what we create versus having the conversation beforehand, before we even create it. Going back to Roe versus Wade, and this was my comment about you had asked a question about, Andrew, you asked a question, and what was the previous question before you asked that, because you switched questions? Something about how can men something about men. What was it? What was the question, Andrew?
What was it? It wasn't on abortion.
No. Just right before this particular question. You right before you switch questions. Question right before this. Something. How can men help, or is there any advice for men before we got into counseling? How can we help, or something like that?
No. So where we left off, we were just talking about. We're talking about if you can't make the relationship work out, right? How do you separate amicably and in the best interest of the child? Like,
okay. Okay, so my comment there was anybody with experience with that. I have experience with that, and part of that experience included, and I hope the men understand this and don't come down on me, but I'm hoping the men will swallow all of their pride, swallow all of their masculinity, swallow anything that's keeping them from going to the mother of their child and begging the opportunity, giving her this choice, begging for the opportunity to help her in any way, shape, or form, whatever it is she needs. Because the dynamics, and I'm generalizing here, the dynamics is when they split, the split was not equal. The children went with her. Now, in some cases nowadays, the children goes with the man, but I'm only talking specifically about the man who leaves and or the split where the children goes with her, due to the fact that he does not have a clue as to how much fear, how much pain, how much angst, how much anxiety is now in her, that she's also unknowingly feeding his children. Devin talked about that earlier about we don't protect our women, and that comment comes up more often in many different conversations, not just this subject matter. But the goal is for men to understand that for 24 hours a day, nonstop, even when this woman is trying to sleep, she is covering those children. And for him, sometimes he thinks that his check is covering his children. Sometimes he thinks that weekend, when he picks them up and then takes them to grandma, is covering those children. Sometimes he thinks that weekend that he picks them up and keeps them is covering his children. But for 24 hours a day for the next 18 years, or for however long they split, she is covering those children. He does not know what it's like when the storm hits and the lights goes out, or when they start coughing and she's coughing, but she can't take a break. So what I'm asking him to do is to understand what his children need by way through that woman. She needs that friend. She needs that support system, and it's not about you anymore.
Definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with that. Definitely agree. Also, just to play devil's advocate, the woman also has to be accepting of that. And so, say if a man is trying, I have seen situations where the woman, because of the way that they split, maybe she has some anger or resentment towards that man. And we've seen situations where children can kind of be used as a tool or as a pawn or as a way to get back. What is your advice to that man in that specific situation?
By any means necessary, he has to get through her pain, and her pain is a reaction of something, and it's probably due to that split, and that split came from both him and her. So he has to address his part of that pain that caused that split that she has not let go of, but she's still holding those children. So somehow he has to let her know, yeah, I caused that pain. Yeah, I'm sorry for that pain. Those two right there, if there's anything that I can do for you to make sure that you can take care of them the best way that you can, now that I have gone and I've messed up, please, will you choose to allow me? Give me a chance in that regard. Ask her.
Mr. Boykin, you better have me passing the collection plate.
Most definitely. We got a comment from Latrice Tucker. Thanks for tuning in. She said that goes both ways because women need to be willing to work with the man if he keeps the kids. Most definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with that. And it's all about the kids. Like, if we're going to build a strong community, the next generation has to be nurtured properly from both parents. Like, we got to figure this out. All this dissension, all this bickering back and forth, it's just definitely not good. Hey, B?
Imagine if our conversations, including Roe versus Wade and women's reproductive rights and sex and so forth, imagine if our conversation actually started with the first cause of the life cycle. And the first cause of the life cycle is not that woman who gets pregnant. The first cause of that life cycle is the man that shoots his life energy into motion If he never shoots his life energy into motion, the life process never begins.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
first
No,
responsibility.
I agree with that. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the responsibility is on the man, and as men raising boys, we have to start having different conversations with them. So patting them on the back for girls looking at them, or introducing them to sexual. That's played out. That's played out. Like, we have to have different conversations with our boys about protecting their seed and understanding. Like you said, the life cycle actually starts with you. We always talk about the woman, but it actually starts with the man. LaRon, it looked like you had something you wanted to add. Okay. No, that's good. So what are some conversations that we can have with our boys? What does that look like? Because we're in an extremely highly sexual society. Everything that they see, all the music they listen to, everything that they watch on TV, everything that they see on social media, they're charged up. Right. And so we can say, hey, the Bible says don't have sex before marriage. We can say, hey, this may mess up your life. But the imagery and what they see is so strong and so suggestive that sometimes that can be difficult. Lauren, we were having a conversation earlier, and we were saying that one of the most important things we can do is kind of educate and not just chastise. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's just my opinion. It's not my opinion. It's fact. When two individuals are in a room together, it's just those two individuals. So, we can all try to live in that world where, mom or dad is on the shoulder saying, don't do that, don't do that. But, when hormones are charged, or maybe, the juice got loose, we're not really thinking with our right minds, male and female. And so, especially with the youth, I think it's so important for us to educate them, talk to them about consequences, share our own personal experiences, in a way that they can understand and grasp and know that, hey, by making this choice, these are the potential consequences of what could happen, because a lot of young people go into these situations doing everything we hear in the song, or everything our friend told us, or something that we saw on the internet or on TV or something like that. And that's our basis for how we are interacting with the opposite sex, with no education on what is and what isn't. And so I am a firm believer that education is the most important piece. We can talk about, again, the Bible says, you shouldn't have sex before marriage, and you shouldn't, like, because of the emotional attachment. And as much as we want to say that guys don't have an emotional attachment, there is an emotional attachment. It may be an immature emotion, but there is an immature attachment. We can say all that, but knowledge is power. And what you do with that knowledge, once you have it, is so super important, and a a better method than just simply saying abstinence is the key. Don't have sex before marriage. Like, educate, educate, educate.
At what age do you all feel that education processes should start? Like, maybe before, it could have been later. Now, is there a specific age, or is there something that you're looking for or change in your child? Or
6 years old, bro.
I said
5
5.
or 6? You say 5? Oh, that's early.
Well,
That's early to me. Okay.
Think about it like this, right? You on the internet and you looking up Pokemon, but you type in Pokemon and all kind of stuff getting ready to come up, right?
Right.
And your eyes see what they see. They see what they see. And think about a little kid that's just sitting there, and the imagery is super attractive. The colors that are in that image are sending triggers to the brain. Different dopamine is shooting off, and they like, oh, well, it looks cool. And those immature minds aren't prepared for nothing. They just see the image, right? And so we think that, oh, my kids are safe. They on there looking at Spider-Man.
Right.
And they probably intended to look at Spider-Man, but came across something else. And so that, I mean, hey, I don't argue with anybody that says I don't let my kids on no iPhone, no iPads, but guess what? They going to school, they got friends. Like, there's just so you can't protect them all the time. And so again, it goes back to that education. And hey, you know, and it starts with simple stuff like safe touch, you know, stuff like that. You ain't gotta go, hey, let me have this deep conversation with you at 5, but we can talk about safe touch. What's appropriate, what's not inappropriate. You know, if something happens, hey, I'm here for you, you know, come talk to me. Even if it didn't happen, it was something that made you feel uncomfortable or it just seemed kind of weird. Let's have that dialogue, because I'm telling you right now, and I have to be transparent about this, and people need to know. Most children that have access to the internet have seen something by accident that they were not supposed to see. And so if we do not have the conversations, they are going to continue to watch that stuff, and they will be so screwed up by the time they get to any age where sex is even appropriate that they won't even know how to have it the right way, because they've seen such an aggressive nature that they all over the place. All over the place.
I agree, and I piggyback on that, and using the correct terms for body parts and not like nicknames and things like that. And just because, like you said, we are in a hypersexualized culture, that we should be, you know, that more transparent and open. Now, obviously, there are levels, like Lauren said, with how transparent the conversation is, but just be, you know, as open, have that open communication, because he's right. Like, I'd rather, you know, my son come to me than one of his little knucklehead friends, you know, when he gets of age. Now, I'm not going to be naive to say he's not going to go talk to his friends. But if we're already coming having those conversations, and I'm learning as a mother not to react when he tells me things, because I want him to be able to come to me about anything and not worry about my mom going off or whatever. So I think that is key, is just, having those structured conversations, appropriate conversations, transparent conversations. I think it's okay to teach, right and wrong, and like you said, educate, right? That kids, we done whatever we wanted to do, regardless of what our parents told us, right?
Right.
I think we have the illness as parents to educate. I know that's one thing I'm going to do, over with my son, is overly educate him, on choices. Now, you might go to do the wrong thing, but it's not because you didn't know better.
You can send him to Uncle House. I'll take care of you. Send him to Uncle House.
Now, here's the thing, though. It's very interesting because the way our society is, and like we said, social media, TV, etc., we have to have the conversation with our children about sex before we even have a conversation about love and marriage. Just find that ironic. But when it comes to that portion of it, so me myself, I got a daughter just turned 16 a month ago. Right. And so when it comes to dating, she's at that age where, she's wanting to date and she's got boys that she likes, etc. How do we approach the conversation of relationship and marriage and where that all fits when it comes to our children? Because if we want to improve from maybe some mistakes that we made or things that we see in our community, it starts with the next generation and giving them a solid foundation. So regardless of if it's a 2-parent household, 1-parent household, co-parenting, whatever it is, what does the conversation sound like when we have our teenage children who are starting to enter the dating world, and we want to help them understand the severity of their actions, but two, like what it could be like if you do things the right way? Like what does that conversation look like? Do you speak to your children about marriage and dating with purpose as they're teenagers, or is that something that you wait and you just kind of let them live their life and have that conversation at a later age? What are your thoughts?
So remember, you're talking about elevating men 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80. And what Lauren was talking about is the imagery that some calculated minds, some educated minds, some psychologically engineered minds have put together information that they know is designed to attract and stimulate thought at certain ages. And if you, as the parent, don't understand that the attack, excuse me, the attack has already started, then you're already behind the 8 ball, thinking that the babysitter, which is that electronic device, is doing them some good. It's already programming them. And if you don't have that conversation at least biweekly or monthly, intentionally, with purpose, and letting them know the definition of purpose, and that they should have a purpose by a certain age, not saying it will be their life purpose, but they will have a purpose to graduate pregnancy free, a purpose to graduate with honors, excuse me, purposes to do something at certain ages, so they will understand what purpose really is before they even hit 20.
I think I can agree to that. I mean, my 14-year-old son is my walking example of parenting right now. And I didn't realize until he started, feeling more comfortable coming to me about certain things. But we have hour-long conversations about real life. And it sometimes checks me because, I mean, he said some things that were tough for me to hear, and his whole perception of relationship is what I've shown him. And not having 2 marriages that were not, to the world's point, successful, like that played a part in what he thinks of relationships. So now we're working through rewriting what relationships are supposed to be versus what he's seen with his mom. And then when he's talking about wanting to date little girls, I'm a why. Like, I give them the why and I ask them why. So when he talks about a girlfriend, why do you want a girlfriend? What is it about her having a title of girlfriend that makes her needing that title significant? Are you going to treat her different from how you treat the other young ladies at your school? Like, so asking those questions and making him have to answer it kind of opens up his eyes to how he sees things. And then he starts to come back with questions. So again, I am 100% advocate for having those uncomfortable conversations with your kids, because and creating that space for them. Like LaToya said, like my son came to me, and I mean, I ain't gonna put all his business on the web, but he's expressed some things that as a mother, I was just like, hold on, like, let's call one of your uncles, somebody. But at the same time, I was very honored that he's seen something in me and trusted me enough based on our relationship to come talk to me. So I think it is very important to start out early building that relationship with your child. I hate the comment, you're not your kid's friend. I am my kid's friend, because with friendship, there's trust, there's a level of respect, and I am my kid's friend. They can come to me and talk to me. And then when there's certain conversations that they don't feel like they can have, they can trust that I'm going to direct them to the best person that can. So I am my kid's friend. I'm also their mother. I'm their protector. I'm their provider. I'm all of that the same way God is for us. So I carry all those titles that I trust that God has with he and I relationship. So I'm asking my kids why, I'm telling them why, I'm loving on them, and I'm creating that space for them to feel comfortable talking to me.
I love that. There was a comment here from Tammy Carolyn. Thanks for tuning in. She said, I advise my kids that they're all equally as messed up, discovering themselves, and have little to no business entertaining relationships in the teen years. And I would have to say that's where I'm at with it. The reason I say is because, if you look before, people were getting married and having babies at like 15, 16 years old, right? We're in a completely different time period now. And so, like, AB alluded to, where we talk about in Elevating Men, the 0 to 20, the 20 to 40, that wasn't relevant. Those numbers, those ages weren't relevant 50, 60, 70 years ago, but we're in a different time now. And so I do feel like there should be some delay in dating. I think a lot of times children are too, they're not emotionally prepared, and they get into these deep relationships at young ages, and they don't know how to handle an inevitable breakup. right? So, 15, 16 years old, how many people do you know that get together at that age and they're still together when they're 40? Right. And so that at that age, you're looking at heartbreak for sure. Lauren, you have a comment?
I just wanted to ask, what is your definition of dating?
I would say seeing each other exclusively, having expectations of each other. I don't think a 15 or 16-year-old should have any expectations of you don't talk to anyone else and I don't talk to anyone else and all these restrictions. I think that going on solo dates is a little bit risky at that age, so I kind of prefer group settings versus the one-on-one 15, 16-year-old with raging hormones that have, had all the influences of music and social media that we talked about. I think that's a dangerous game to play.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
And I'm asking to play devil's advocate.
For sure.
So if that kid sees a healthy relationship where they see two loving individuals in the same house, and all they're doing is wanting to mirror that in their lives, how do you have that conversation where you like, well, because they're like, well, you and mom are in love, and how do you have that conversation? Because I think we're talking about, we don't think that they should,
right?
You answer the question where they're like, but what about you and mom doing it? So why is it not appropriate for me when I have seen this for years? And so in their minds, they're like, oh, I'm experienced. I've seen my mom and dad do it forever.
Right. I can't speak. I didn't have that experience, but what I would say is helping them understand the blueprint to a successful life. Helping them understand. I'm a numbers guy. I'm all about statistics, and so just really helping them understand like the likelihood of this carrying through and crossing over is low. It's okay that you have these feelings, but if you're trying to replicate what me and your mother have, there was a plan that was put in place. We were of a certain age, we had certain intent. And so until you reach that point, I think it's just best to be friends. And if it's real, if it's actually love, that's something that'll show itself, later on. That's something that'll stick around. That's something that'll develop. There's no need to rush. That would be my answer. LaRon, with you having grown up with both parents in the household, is that something that you ever felt like you kind of saw your parents and maybe at a young age you felt like, hey, I can do this, or I'm ready to do this? How did that affect you?
Well, I'm be honest. I'm a person who loves to express love through affection, and what I just saw.
We see it on your TikTok. We see that.
That's funny that you did that. No, so you get it. That's really it. Then. And that really came from my dad. I seen how my dad treated my mother. I seen how he loved on her, how he gave her attention. I also seen how my mother came. My dad came home some days that she would come and run and jump on my father and say, "Daddy's home." So I seen all that expressed at a young age, it definitely played a huge factor on me. My bad. I kind of threw off the question a little bit. What did I answer that, Andrew? Rewind it back a little bit.
Well, what Lauren brought up was, the child that grows up in a two-parent household may desire to act that out earlier than they maybe should. And so I'm just asking, I'm just wondering if that was any of your experience. Do you feel like you wanted to, have somebody jumping on you saying daddy when you was like 15, 16, or, what was that like?
That came not from my household. That came from my peers. That's where my influence was. When it came to that part, it was my peers, just because that's what everything was going around. That's what everybody else was putting in front of me. So I'm like, man, I want to experience what that's like. It didn't happen from my own household, that perspective. So that in that area of my life, the peers were the bigger influence into really jumping into it, because I thought, that's the thing to do. That seems fun. But once again, as you know, I really wasn't able to dump fully into it. Thank God I didn't, because I would have more kids.
And that's what I love about what Devin said. I really love what she said, because the previous generation is, I ain't my kid's friend, and you miss so many opportunities to educate and guide your child when you have that kind of stance. And so, like you said, it was your peers that you listened to, not your parents that you were in the household every day. And let's just be honest, once kids go to school, they're with their peers more than they're with you. And so you might as well become somewhat of a part of their friend circle so that they can trust you and have those conversations. Andrew, you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, you talked about something like advising the kids, hey, you shouldn't be getting all serious right now, just date and so forth and so on. And if love comes about, it's just my opinion because
I wouldn't say just date. Just to clarify, I wouldn't say just date. Just be friends.
Just be friends. Just be friends. So it's just my opinion because I'm not from different cultures, but I have witnessed different cultures having not only grooming stages, but eventually leading up to rites of passages and so forth and so on at certain ages, such as certain people will take their son hunting at the age of 2. That's when he gets his first rifle, and the son knows how to change the transmission by age 10. But he also knows that if somebody comes onto the household or the farm and daddy's not home and mom's in trouble, where the rifle is located, because he knows these steps of purpose, his purpose. Now, as far as dating is concerned, when that girl enters the picture, sometimes those families actually understand that there's a liking between the two. So their outings are intentional, but yet watching, so that they're grooming this type of affection, so that when it does become of age, these persons have known and are comfortable with the friendship and how to grow it further. Basically, what I'm saying is sometimes it seems as if we're the only ones who waits until experience teaches us that it's time to learn, instead of learning something and having it in the back of our heads when experience rears its ugly head, so that we can actually have a choice to make. Does that make sense? So you're kind
of saying like courting versus dating, where there's like some parental involvement, there's some guidance. You go to the movie, we're 2 rows back. That
whatever you want to call it. It's just that some cultures don't wait until the kid grows up to 18 and comes home with a baby or whatever. Go ahead, Devin. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to reiterate. I think it's important that we're asking our kids questions, right? Because we have a definition of dating, and I think we all on this panel look at dating different. So do our children. So when our kids are coming to us saying they're dating, we can't instantly jump on it. You're too young to be dating, because their perception and their definition may be as harmless as a friend. And then that's when, like, Lojo says, educating, correcting, reinforcing. Okay, so what you just described to me is really just a friendship. So it's really not, and then that's the time where you can, talk to your child about what it is that they're really looking for in that stage of their life, because curiosity starts when they're 5 on what they like, what they see, what they want to be. All that stuff starts when they're a toddler. Now it changes as they grow, but we have to not be so quick to just shut them down because we're putting our definition of what we know dating to be on them. This is a completely different generation, and they use completely different terms that mean completely different things. So I'm learning that with my son. When he says he wants something, I'm like, what is that? Tell me what that is.
And remember this, just like we were, when our parents told us, no, I don't think you should be doing that. No, don't do that, or whatever the case is, we always knew better. So guess what they now know? Better.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So we got to figure it out. I know that we can. The more that we have these conversations. Tammy left a good comment. She said many of us did the next prescribed thing and never even think about what we actually want. And so with us having this conversation about how our children turned out based off of our decisions with whoever we decide to procreate with, do you believe that there is room for what we want in the context of what we want to produce? Because sometimes those things conflict. And so if what I want is to be a single man who has options, that does this, that does that, but I want my sons to raise a family and, be this different type of person, like where does that Where do those two intersect? What we want versus what we want to perpetuate.
Can I jump in there and say that? Answer that?
Sure.
Okay, so I want everybody, if you, I'm getting ready to show my age. If you know this, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes
a baby in the baby carriage.
You're not showing your age.
Okay.
Right.
So listen to that. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes baby in a baby carriage, or whatever the case is. And you just got finished asking the question of, I forget what the question is, forgive me, but imagine if first comes purpose, second comes a plan, then comes the tools.
Then comes milkman.
Yeah, then comes the milkman. Exactly.
You gotta know yourself though to know your purpose.
Well,
So
here's the thing.
I think
We don't know what purpose is. We don't know the definition of purpose, especially at a young age. All we know is the song. And since the parents listen to them singing that song, they never step in and say, did you know that there was a purpose that love was supposed to support? Love is a tool. But first comes love. First comes the tool. Tool to build what? Tool to build what? Well, that ain't in the song. I don't know.
That's an interesting perspective. And just in y'all's personal life, anybody just kind of jump in, but was love and marriage explained to you in a way that registered at a young age that I want to build a family, or was it about the butterfly feeling and attraction?
None of the above.
Okay. Got you. None of the above. So was it just self-education? Just, whatever you felt you did because the direction wasn't there? What was that? Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot. I won't say that. That's what some kids in households see, right? They don't see anything, and so they have to somehow, some way, seek out what that is. And a lot of times they see the bad, and so they just don't have an idea of what the good is. And again, so it just puts you on the path of searching. And a lot of times as a young person, because we don't have the maturity to search in the right places, we then go search in the wrong places, and that's where we kind of get ourselves in trouble and kind of get off of that path, right? And so no, and
that's where I got to throw this out there. Wait until you're 30 before you have kids. Like, that'll eliminate 90% of the problems. I wholeheartedly believe that. I didn't do it, but if I could go back and do it all over again, I still have my babies, but I would have waited at least until I was 30, exactly because of what Tammy said. We don't even know what we want, right? We've already got a baby screaming and needing our attention and our love and affection and resources before we even know, do I want to be married? Do I want to be a single person? How do I want to live my life? We never give ourselves that opportunity. We've already created the commitment before we've made the commitment. And that's one of the biggest issues. That's why one of the things that we teach with Elevating Men is the 4 quarters of life. Andrew alluded to it earlier. We say 0 through 20, you should be learning, discovering, you should be guided through that, most definitely by your parents. By 20, you need to be figuring out your career, setting certain goals, developing your plan, so that by 30, when you're at the age where it kind of makes sense and you know what you want, you're fully mature as an adult. Then as a man, you can present a proposal, a plan, to a woman. You can seek marriage and have children and hopefully live happily ever after. But that's definitely not the way that a lot of us do it. And so for the ladies, I'm just asking this. Would you find it attractive, like kind of go back a few years, early 20s or whatever, would you find it attractive? Would you have found it attractive, maybe a man that you were sexually attracted to and you're like, hey, I'm ready to make this happen, hormones are raging, and he says, no, this isn't time for that yet. I view you in this specific way, and these are my plans for the future. How would you have received that at that time? Would he be would he be a nerd? Would he be lame? would you have blown them off, or would that have been something that was attractive to you at that age? Not you now, but at that age. Lojo was saying no.
I was gonna
No.
say probably.
She was like, don't
not.
call me no more.
I was gonna say probably, depending on like early 20s, probably not. But later, like 28, 29, 30, probably like starting to like be more mature. But early 20s, nah. I probably would have been like somebody was like, nah, miss me with
Because
that.
I feel, I'm seeing like where it kind of goes both ways. Like a lot of times we focus on how men want certain things from women, but it actually does go both ways. There are a group of men out there, there's a segment of the population who do have these morals. And from what I hear, they have very bad experiences in trying to express those morals with today's women. And so I was just really curious about that. What are your thoughts, Devin?
I'm a hopeless romantic, so I probably would have been all over him. That probably would have made me fall. Whatever, Lauren, I ain't talking to you right now. No, seriously, like I feel like some part of me has this older soul, and I've always wanted older men. So I feel like that would have been like the guidance that I was looking for, and kind of still looking for someone to just be like, hold on, I have a plan for us, even then and now. So I don't think it's a turnoff. And I mean, you know, with now today's influences of city girls, it will probably be corny. But I think in my 20s, it would have been like reciprocated and appreciated for me, Lauren.
Lauren said no, and you were adamant about the no. So why you say that?
Well, I'll say this because you're the exception, not the rule, right? Because we want to create this ideology that men or women are just so much farther advanced than men at a young age. And there's parts of that that's true, and then there's parts of that is just the nature of being young, right? And being 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, where it doesn't matter if you're male or female, the maturity level isn't there, right? And then when we talk about, maybe somebody's experience doesn't always mean that you're ready. It just means that you may have a certain type of knowledge that you didn't have before. And so I think that there does have to be more factors than just, well, I experienced this, so now that makes me prepared, it makes me a subject matter expert, I'm ready. There's more to it than that.
I feel you. Andrew, you have something to...
But Devin, hey, I love it. If I wish that guy would have came around for you. I do. Because I don't think it's corny, right? In my 20s, absolutely. You know what I'm saying? It's only corny because you don't necessarily need to go there yet, right? Live life experience, but I mean, every once in a while, you do, aim for the moon and land on the star and you get lucky, at a young age. I say I did, and I didn't deserve it necessarily at that age. I wasn't out here going crazy, but I also wasn't mentally all the way prepared to be married, and that's just me being honest. I got married I was 22 when I got married, and I thought I was ready. I did, but then I realized as I grew up, right, that I wasn't ready. Really, what I was doing was I was still trying to replace the void that my father left. And so let me buck up and be a man and build a family and things of that nature. And so you have to have the right purpose, the right mentality. And I would never tell somebody don't do it. I would say be extremely cautious and be very ready. Otherwise, there's going to be some things that happen. There's going to be some growth from both individuals, and if you don't have that open, honest communication about what you're going through and how you're feeling,
Derail.
ride the tidal wave because it's coming.
Right. And that's a good conversation. We went a little over our time, but we're good just for a few more minutes. AB, you had something you wanted to add?
So, Lojo, forgive me, but ride the wave and the time and stuff like that, and maybe in the 20s is, imagine if we actually started having that conversation about not explore your feelings, but what's your purpose? What's your plan? What do you have to offer? What have you built? Where are you going to bring her that's yours? Those questions that have nothing to do with feeling, that have nothing to do with excitement and all this sexual energy, but the questions of after the sex, meaning when they're sitting around and saying, okay, now what do we do now? And a couple of weeks, okay, we do it again, but now she's pregnant. And what do we do now? We're always in a state of what do we do now?
We're always reacting instead of planning.
Always reacting. Now, Devin just got finished saying earlier how when you asked her that question, she was saying, I would have loved a man with a plan, with protection in my mind. Imagine if 0 to 20, we actually started to implement that word, purpose, plan, and protection to our young men. Purpose, plan, and protection to our young men. So by the time they hit 10, 15, and then 20, they not only know those words, but they have answers for those words. So that they don't just have to find themselves in their 20s, because while they're finding themselves in their 20s, they're losing a lot of examples along the way in the form of those women that they were looking through. Themselves.
And typically the way things are set up, we lose our best years, right? Like when they started that whole, what was it, 40 is the new 20 or whatever that is, they want to keep us in this immature state for so long. You know what I'm saying? And so we're having children while we're still immature. We're still children ourselves, technically. We haven't built anything. We don't have a solid foundation. And then we try to raise a family off of that. And many of us, it takes until we're in our 30s, our mid 30s, maybe even 40 before the light bulb goes off. And now we've wasted all this time. We've wasted a whole quarter of our life, and then we're trying to play catch up, in our late 30s and in our 40s. And by that time, our children are teenagers or adults, and then the cycle just repeats itself. LaToya?
I was going to say, it's like going to piggybacking on what Mr. AB said. It's true, though. Like, you think about, like, elite cultures and the elite family systems, like, they start training at an early age. Like, those kids are like starting to train. They already know they're going to an Ivy League college. They're trained about like how to deal with their money and their finances, and it's already set up for them to be successful. So kind of like what you were saying, if we start with our kids at a early age and talking about purpose and who you are, knowing your worth and all of that, like I know that's like one of the components that will break a lot of generational curses, right? Because it's all about like this whole wave of positive affirmations and how do you speak to yourself and things like that. And the whole person, like all that starts when kids are small.
Yep.
I'm just hoping to pay for community college, Ivy League.
Imagine if our kids knew themselves instead of had to always find themselves.
Oh, that's a whole topic.
That's a whole nother show. But that's definitely what we need to get to. I would have to say, if I were to sum up what I've learned over the course of these 4 conversations, intent is like probably the number one word that I found out of all of this. Like, we have to be way more intentional about the way that we parent. When we come to an age of being able to do what we want, we have to have intent in what we're building and finding our purpose and creating a plan. We definitely have to have more intent. I also believe that specifically in the Black community, if we know that most of us are growing up in single parent households, we know that we're lacking. So as a man, when I meet a woman and I know that, you know, hey, she grew up this way, I should have some sense of understanding, right? And that understanding should give me more patience. It should allow me to reach for a deeper level of understanding before we move through the stages of a relationship. And I feel that that should be reciprocated from the woman. If she understands, hey, this dude grew up without a father, he didn't have that type of guidance, but he's someone that I love and I can see myself building with, then you got to have a little patience, right? That doesn't mean let him run over you. That doesn't mean you take all of his crap, but it does mean, hey, I understand where you are, understand where I am, and together, let's get to a place where we can both be happy. All right. The other thing I would say that I've learned, the Roe versus Wade thing, I've actually kind of been kicking that around, and you gave me a lot of insight on that, Devin. I really do appreciate your feedback. You as well, LaToya. Definitely understand that a woman's body is her right, it's her choice. There are situations that, you know, there's some gray area there, but ultimately, you know, that's a woman's choice. What would you all say that you've learned over the course of these four conversations? What's your biggest takeaways?
My biggest takeaway is that the word protection has always come up quickly and has been always glossed over. And when a man meets a woman, like you just described, imagine if patience was not his primary word, but protection was. Meaning, if he knew that his heart was not there, he's going to protect her even from him.
Mm,
Mm.
that's good.
Ooh,
That's good.
that was
That's good. Honesty. Devin, we've had 4 hours worth of talking about men and women, or men versus women. What have you gathered? And we've enjoyed having you, by the way. Excellent dialogue.
I have enjoyed being a part of this platform, being able to hear a man's perspective. It's been very enlightening as a woman trying to tap into her feminine energies and understand how to view a man, how to view his strengths and his weaknesses and support him through that. I remember when he was talking about a man is battling himself, God, and that just kind of like blew me away. I think the third one was the world. You can correct me if I was wrong, Mr. AB, but that when I heard it, it took me back to where I don't always have to feel like I have to fight his battles or he's fighting me, and learning how to be sensitive to the battles that have absolutely nothing to do with me, right? Because I have my own battles that have absolutely nothing to do with him. And then, like you said, just being intentional about giving grace, being patient with one another, being accountable, and expressing, communicating your needs and your wants. And then lastly, I feel like being okay with taking the time to invest, to learn someone, and being able to walk away if it's not what you need, or if it's not bringing you what you want. Like that, I think, is the key to healthy relationships. Sometimes we feel committed and locked in because sex got involved or children are involved or whatever other variables came. But if we really take the time to date healthily, get to know ourselves, and also learn the person that we're wanting to be with, then acknowledging that, and if it's not what both parties are looking for, being healthy and mature enough to walk away and allow that person to go on with their venture, and vice versa. So great dialogue. I really pray that this falls on some ears and some hearts that can receive it and apply it to their lifestyle, and that it become a healthy cycle for them and their families and their homes, and like you said, build better communities.
Love it, love it. LaToya, like I said, same 4 hours. You've been here for all of them, giving us great commentary, great feedback. Tie it all together for us. What have you learned from this?
Men and women want the same thing: to be respected and valued and loved. And I think that I'm in a different situation. I've been married. Been married for a long time, but same thing. Men and women want the same thing, and it's okay to want to level up and go against the grain no matter what. We talked about things that are popular on social media and like pop culture and things like that, but it's okay if your values and the things that you want are different, and level up, like the things we learned about, like the whole mission of elevating men and the different pillars. And if you're a single woman, and a man with a plan, those are all things I wish that somebody was teaching me back 20 something years ago. So you did to what Devin said. I hope people go back and watch the replays and take the information. Like, when you know better, you do better, right? And so it's not just about having knowledge, but it's applying that knowledge to be better. And as you think about furthering this mission of elevating men, it's the education, and that's needed. And but they say people perish for lack of knowledge. So the more conversations that we have like this, and the more people hear it, and we start normalizing positivity in the right conversations, I think it will help people know it's okay to go against the grain and want something that's different and better for them.
Love it, love it. And last but never least, Lojo, man, like tie this whole thing together for us.
See, men are from Mars, women are no, like LaToya said, I think we all want similar things between the two species. Something that we talked about a little bit earlier today, Andrew, is there's this subset of people, and I believe that there are 5 of them here right now that have great ideas, logical ideas, things that can really help a larger mass of people. And we have to allow our voices to be heard, not allow our voices to be quelched. If that's the word, I don't know. I'll look it up tomorrow. But relationships are hard. Even good relationships, they're hard. They take work. They take communication. And so the communication is always the biggest piece. Let's not lie to each other. If this is not the right relationship, even a friendship, not just a monogamous relationship, but even friendship, if it's not the right relationship, be honest, because you're going to save each other that time, and there's respect in that honesty that goes a lot further and a lot deeper than just trying to push through something that isn't ever going to work, and it just is going to just build more and more anger and animosity and frustrations. And so open communication, be honest with each other, and love each other through it all. The good, the bad, the ugly. Just love each other through it all.
I love it. I love it. Ah, man, this concludes our. I'm like sad. It's like bittersweet. This is the last part of the series, but definitely, hey, if you're watching this, if you're still watching, go ahead and give us a like if you would like to see these ladies back on. I know you do. Even if I don't see your likes, I know you do, because the conversation's been awesome. I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna put you on the spot. If we were to call you to come back on for another conversation, would you ladies be open to it? We've really enjoyed having you. Yep. Perfect. Awesome. Well, this concludes our show for this evening. Thank each and every one of you for tuning in. As always, I'll ask that you please go to our YouTube channel, type in Elevating Men, check us out. Check out all the archives. I think at this point we've got over 40 conversations on various topics relating to men's mental health, relationships, and even more. We're going to have more great conversations coming forward. We are going to take a small break for the next week just to put together our next series. And so if you have any comments or some things that you feel you'd like to see us talk about, go to the Elevating Men's page, hit the contact us. You can also go to Facebook, Elevating Men, and our official page there. We respond very quickly, and so we definitely want to hear from each and every one of you. But thanks for tuning in. Any last words? You all good? Because I'm gonna put your contact information in the chat there. Make sure people can get a hold of you. But again, for everyone, thanks for tuning in. Keep watching for the announcement for the next series. We appreciate each and every one of you. Have a good night.
Don't